For our learning moment about the liturgy this morning, I want to talk briefly about the confession and the peace. Since I've been here, I've been inviting you to the confession instead of just saying, let us confess our sins to God, which is perfectly fine. I change it to, in silence, let us acknowledge those things which separate us from God and from one another, and then humbly confess those sins to God. And what that invitation is, it is a time in that silence. It's an invitation for us to think about what are the ways this week that I interrupted my relationship with my community. Was God at the center of that relationship, or was I at the center of that relationship? That's really what the general confession is about. Because sin is the ways in which we separate ourselves from God. It is not breaking the rules. Is murder a sin? Yes, of course it is. Because when you kill someone, you've certainly disrupted the relationship with you and God. But anything that disrupts you and your relationship to the community and God is a sin. So that's the confession. So the idea is that if we are going to come together as a community and share a meal as a community around this table, then we need to be in harmony with each other, and we need to be in harmony with God, which is why the confession is placed just before the Eucharist. So all those sins we committed in the first half of the service, we can get forgiven right before we go to communion. And right after the confession comes the peace, where to show each other that we have forgiven each other and we have sought the forgiveness of God to restore the community, we exchange the peace with one another. So there's as much harmony as there can be in the community before we approach God's table. So that's why we confess our sins, and that is why we share the peace right before the Eucharist. And let us now hear a reading from the second book of Samuel.